All right, we are back to preview Jamaica and the United States. But first, another reminder for you all, if you're just joining us or if you hopped on late, shout out to Jordan Angeli. She joined us. We were so grateful to have her. But if you're just joining us, I want to let you know that we are nominated for the Best Female Hosted Podcast category in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. We appreciate everything you all do for us, and we truly hope you enjoy our show. Enough to nominate us to advance into the final round. To nominate Attacking Third, go to podcastawards.com/app/sign up, and then toggle down to the Female Hosted Podcast category and go ahead and vote for us. The whole process takes less than a minute, and we've included the link at the top of this episode description as well. Lisa, we got to talk about Reggae Girlz. We got to talk about the gals. We got to talk about United States versus Jamaica. This one's going to be kicking off on Thursday, July 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern on Paramount Plus. What are we going to see? We know we're not going to see Megan Rapinoe unavailable for this one. Well, are we going to see a different starting lineup, change in the tactics for the United States? What are we going to see, Lisa?
Yeah, I think Megan Rapinoe not being there is a big one, although I would never expect her to get the start in this match. She is being awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom at the White House on July 7th. So she's missing this match and coming back. And I think not having her in the locker room pregame, potentially at training today. I'm not sure her flight schedule, but not having her in the training room, not having her on the bench, not having her in the locker room at halftime. I think that is an adjustment, right? That's why Vlatko brought Rapinoe, is for those off the field moments and coaching. When we look at starting lineups for the U.S., I expect we'll see a little bit of rotation. I'm not entirely sure how much, but I expect we'll see a little bit of rotation. As we just talked about with Jordan Angeli, this Jamaican side is they're coming off of a win. So, right, they've got incredibly high confidence going into this match against the U.S. They've got a goal from Bunny Shaw, 3 points over Mexico, the host country in this tournament. And this is a Jamaican side that really wants to take points off the U.S. Now, I think Jamaica's going to go for the win, but in the back of their minds, it's like, let's get a tie. Let's get 1 point off the U.S. So in terms of that, I think Vlatko has to be aware of what he's going up against in this Jamaican side, especially after what they saw from Haiti, a team that got good looks, got chances. So Casey Murphy, I imagine, will stay in goal considering how well she did against that Haiti side, making really big saves on a breakaway against Haiti. She had an incredible save, and then the penalty kick going off the post. In the back line, not entirely sure how much rotation we'll see there, but I think when we look at the front line, Sophia Smith got the start against Haiti. It was Smith, Alex Morgan, and Mallory Pugh, and Smith was dealing with a bit of a knock. She had her leg wrapped up. She wasn't running at 100%. She wasn't giving 100% due to that injury. And I'm not knocking her by any means. And that's what you have to do as a player. If you can't run.
I mean, everyone saw it. Right. So we're looking at the players and where we see them wrapped up.
Exactly. And I think we could see rotation there in that front line, especially after Vlatko rotated in Margaret Purse. And she was ultimately able to get a goal, 2 goals, but one of them called back due to offside, but get a second goal that actually counted in this match against Haiti. So the rotation there was a positive one for Vlatko. So I don't think we'll see Sophia Smith start. This could be a rest game for her in terms of her injury. Of course, it depends on how training has been the last 2 days and how her recovery has been, but I could see that rotation happening as well in the front line.
Yeah, I do wonder, if this is the game where we see Trinity Rodman get a start. I don't know if she's going to get a start or just a full 45 minutes.
I don't think she'll get a start. I think we'll see her, but I don't think she'll get a start.
Yeah, this is a player that, they brought up into national team camps, and, her time with the team in 2022 has been very limited. And she's a very exciting player on the pitch, a very, very talented player, someone who could absolutely create a bunch of chaos for the opposition if they allow it to happen. But the whole idea and concept around Trinity Rodman and bringing her up into the squad, the coaching staff has said that they wanted to bring her and integrate her in slowly. And this roster heading into the Concacaf Championship was really shaped a bit due to injury, players out on maternity leave. Vlatko has pretty much, confirmed that within some media availabilities that, things like long-standing injuries, players out on maternity, that has helped shape this roster going into this tournament. And here we are, we see a young player like Trinity Rodman. So I do think she'll see time in this match. I just don't know if it's going to be a start, but that is an option for this team, quite frankly, as we look at, the matchup against Jamaica. But it's not just Sophia Smith that I'm keeping an eye on, Lisa. I mean, we have to say about Lindsey Horan.
I want to jump in before you jump to the midfield. We're getting questions in our chat right now. Why won't she get a start, do you think?
I'm sorry?
For me, excuse me?
What was the question? You cut out for me.
No, that's okay. So Kathleen Clavin here, she asked, why won't she get a start, do you think? Because that's what we're saying. And I appreciate these questions because I don't think Trinity Rodman will get a start personally because of the lack of experience that this player has in playing in these types of tournaments and playing internationally. Although she can make a difference, and oftentimes that naivety can help a player in this situation. Going up against this Jamaican side in this type of environment in Mexico, I don't think you just give a player like that the start. I think coming off the bench is the best way to ease someone like Rodman into a game. And that could be 45 minutes, right? Like getting her in right at the half and finishing out the game once she can kind of assess how things are going. And Rodman's also an incredibly dynamic, quick, and creative player that if she can watch the game for a few minutes, 45 minutes, see where the spaces are, have the opponents also be tired out a little bit in this Jamaican side, which is what we could see if the U.S. really moves the ball around. Rodman will be much more of a threat if she comes in at the 60-minute mark or in the second half. That's my perspective on the situation. I think that as Purse got minutes, maybe she would get the start in this situation over someone like Rodman, and then Rodman would be rotated in.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I essentially just sort of repeat what I already said in that, Rodman's inclusion in this roster and with this team, quite frankly, in 2022 was always meant to be a sort of slow integration. But unfortunately, injury, maternity leave have sort of expedited that process for this team. She's a very talented player, and you cannot say that the reigning rookie of the year, a player who is so great in the attack when given the opportunity, they sort of forced the coaching staff's hand to sort of, ensure that she was part of this roster. Andonovski's no stranger to rotation, even within the game. We've seen him make the halftime sub. So could she get a full 45? It's possible. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see that, depending on how this game is going. But I think Elise is correct in that it's a little bit more likely to maybe at the hour mark where they sort of gauge where the game is at that point. But again, an option for the forward core if they need to maybe make an adjustment. I mean, do we see Alex Morgan go as long in this match as she did against Haiti? She had a great performance there. I'm not sure. Is this the game that we see Ashley Hatch introduced into the tournament? There's a number of things here that we're keeping an eye on. And as I was alluding to before we answered this question specifically about Rodman, talking about Sophia Smith and perhaps sort of the wrap that we're noticing around her leg in that first game, may perhaps impacting her speed a bit on the pitch. We're also looking at a player like Lindsey Horan, and very key player for this team going in to this tournament. But this is a player who has had limited ability due to the sort of ongoing injury that she's been carrying for a little while. We saw her sort of navigate this injury with the national team. Quite frankly, she got pulled out of a prior camp due to this injury, saying, hey, don't need to be here right now. We're going to ensure that she gets a little bit of extra rest, but also playing with Lyon on this bad lower leg injury. We saw her all wrapped up during the Champions League title game, which she had an outstanding performance, and the team ended up becoming Champions League title holders and also French League winners as well. But here we are with Lindsey Horan, who's become this very integral part of the midfield and has been referred to as possibly, another option in the six for this team because they are limited in options in that role. We saw her struggle a bit as well as Sophia Smith. I mean, we know how impactful these players are when they're just a little bit more healthy. But unfortunately, these injuries have sort of followed the team a little bit into this tournament. And I am 100% curious as to how this midfield is going to look against a Jamaica side that completely negated Mexico's midfield. They just absolutely made them obsolete. So what are we going to see in this middle third?
So I agree with the looks on Herrera, considering the minutes that she got in the match against Haiti, and then Ashley Sanchez coming in and offering a lot of versatility in that midfield. I would love to see Ashley Sanchez get the start in this match for Vlatko Andonovski. I'm not entirely sure that would happen, because so much of this, you have to look at your competition, and looking at Jamaica, they could do a lot of damage in the midfield, or frankly skipping over the midfield. And in terms of leadership and been there before and understand these types of situations, Herrera has that upper hand over a player like Sanchez in the midfield. Yeah. And maybe playing it safe. I don't want to say those terms, but to have someone on the pitch that can be your captain, be your leader in the midfield, understanding, being able to communicate with all players on the pitch purely based on location on the pitch, being in the middle of the field. Herrera can do that. Whereas if Becky Sauerbrand's in the back line, yes, she can also assess and make those adjustments, but it's a lot harder for her to communicate that to the front three when she's sitting in the back line. So then it becomes a bit of whisper down the lane and talking on the pitch in those in-game adjustments. Whereas Herrera, she can do that in the middle of the field. But also, I think we have to be really cautious about how Lindsey Herrera's injury is, and looking ahead to once they get out of the group stage for the US, they're going to need Lindsey Herrera. So do you rest her in moments like this? I'm not sure. I think giving Ashley Sanchez the start would be fine, and the midfield will be able to hold it down.
My other question to that is do you continue to put those minutes on an Andy Sullivan? I mean, this is also a player that is dealing with a lower body injury.
So I don't think Andy Sullivan gave us as many miles. And now I don't know. I'm not looking at their trackers and their GPS, but I don't think she put in as many miles in that match against Haiti as someone like Lindsey Herrera did, just purely based on how the game unfolded, right? Yes, there was moments of back and forth, but Sullivan really sat back. She really sat right in front of Cook and Sauerbrunn. She wasn't pushing up. There wasn't that much movement into the attacking end for Sullivan. And maybe that was due to the injury that she had, or the fact that Haiti could counter and transition very quickly. But yeah, I mean, these are all things that need to be taken into account. And that's why they wear the trackers, so they can adjust that, so they can have 2 days of rest in between. And I think a lot of the rotation we're going to see for the US is not going to just be purely based on performance, but also how healthy players are, how many minutes they got right. Like you mentioned, Alex Morgan, she got 90 plus minutes in the last match. I don't think we'll see her get 90 again. However, if she's hot and she is feeling great the last 2 days of training, even heading into the match day tomorrow, if she is feeling good, maybe she will. A lot of it has to come down to like player body and minute management.
I do think it depends on the choice that they're going to make. I think if they want to ask Alex Morgan, okay, give us 45. Which one are you giving to her? Are you giving it to her to start this game? Are you giving it to her to close out this game? They got a 3-0 scoreline against Haiti. And a big part of what that happened is because Alex Morgan had the performance that she had. But maybe some of that, the whole concept of needing a little bit of more extra time to sort of unlock what the opposition is presenting to the United States. Is this maybe the game where we see the return of that? Where maybe because of the adjustments that are going to come into play, perhaps we're going to see players needing a little bit extra time to sort of see what Jamaica is presenting them and try to unlock things. And maybe we don't see the goal coming in this one as quick as we did in Haiti.
I agree, because you have to have that time to unlock, and you posed a possibly rhetorical question. Do you get, if you ask Alex Morgan, you get 45, the first 45 or the second 45? I'd give her the first 45 minutes. As a veteran player, we know she's on a hot streak right now. She's coming off of a brace against Haiti. She can read the game very well. She understands how to play with the different personnel on the pitch. We've seen that in the various rotations, whether it was Purse coming in, Smith and Pugh up top, or Mewis in the midfield, or Herrera and Lavelle in the midfield, Sanchez in the midfield. Morgan can still play and adjust her game to contribute on the pitch. So I as a coach, I would give Alex Morgan the start. If she's only getting 45, give her the first 45, allow her to unlock the other opponent, allow her to try various creative ways to get in the box, to unlock that box, to work with her opponents. And that allows other forwards, perhaps on the bench, to be able to watch, see what's working, see what's not working. I mean, as a player that comes in off the bench, you have an advantage because you've been watching from the sidelines. You've seen the full space. You've seen what the player in your position that you're going in has already tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked. You're also listening to your head coach, talking with the assistants, talking with the bench, rewatching film. You can rewatch something as a player on the bench. It's a huge advantage. So if I'm Ashley Hatch, I'm sitting there and I'm going to the technical team and saying, hey, give me that iPad. I want to go back and look at this play and the movement that Morgan did off the ball to create that space. And that's huge learning opportunity for Ashley Hatch. So I give Morgan the start and then rotate players in off of that.
I do wonder if this game against Jamaica is going to be the Washington Spirit game. We're talking a ton of players on this national team. Yeah, who represent the Spirit. And I just wonder if this is the game where we're going to want to see players who have as much familiarity with each other as possible to continue to carry this momentum for this United States women's national team. And perhaps you do that by playing the collective of players that have all of that familiarity with each other. It is something I'm curious about. I do wonder if we'll see it. I do wonder if that also means somebody like an Emily Sonnet that you slot her into that back line, because we were looking at things at that back line against Haiti, looking like they got beat a few times.
Yeah.
Struggling with some areas where they had to mark. And I'm wondering if there's going to be some adjustments there as well.
I could see adjustments. I don't know. I would love to see Sonnet in the center back, and I doubt that's going to happen. So if there are adjustments, I could see it being Naomi Girma coming in for Alana Cook in that back line. So it would be Fox, Girma, Sauerbrunn, and then O'Hara, right? We haven't even talked about her. How's she dealing with her injury? She got cleated to the ribs, to the abdomen, had a bit of a bruise we saw during the game and scratches. How is she doing? Can she play? If not, I think Huerta will be in there. So that one between O'Hara and Huerta, I think it's a pretty even trade-off in terms of play, because O'Hara has the experience, but Huerta offers something a little bit different on the pitch. So that this one comes down to health. And if O'Hara's dealing with a little bit of something, I think Huerta will get the start.
I think that's fair. I mean, that's what I'm going to be looking for as well. I thought Huerta's inclusion into that match against Haiti was pretty good. I liked the substitutions that took place against Haiti. I thought that they provided something else for the team off the bench. But we'll see. I think there's a lot to keep an eye on here in this one. I'm curious as to what the injuries, how they're going to continue to shape the team moving forward. And that's just how it's going to be. This is the roster. This is the team that's here in this tournament. These are the players that the coaching staff has to choose from. Quite frankly, I don't think we're going to get any sort of in-depth sort of feedback or information or updates on player injuries. I mean, if the Olympics are anything to go off of, all of that stuff's going to come out afterwards. It's not going to happen while the tournament is in play. There are players who came to this competition carrying injuries. They still are carrying those same injuries, and whether they are getting better or getting worse, that is not going to be said until after this tournament is done. That's just how the international competitions sort of work. It's like when you hear, let's say when you watch Stanley Cup and you realize that a player was playing on like a broken leg the entire time, and you don't know that until after everything is done. So it's just something that we're sort of keeping an eye on.
Athletes are so incredible, but also we have to remember that there's a knockout round for this, and
so I'm sure that's something they're going to be,
you have to look at
Canada
and how they are coming off of a huge win. You have to look at Costa Rica, other teams in Group B, and it's a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yep.
We'll see. We'll kind of see how this all unfolds.
We'll keep our eye on it. Thanks everybody so much for listening to our preview.